So today we will discuss corpus linguistics and try to look at a few tools that can be used as an alternative to the libraries discussed in lectures 7 and 8. So we will pay a bit of attention to the history of linguistic corpora. Mind that corpus is the plural as corpora. Then we will discuss different methods and approaches to linguistic analysis in general and in terms of the tools that we will have a look at. And finally, we will, I will demonstrate two services, two tools for two different types of analysis. So the idea is by the end of the lecture to try out those platforms for you at home, then to analyze, to process your corpora with those platforms, and then to compare the results to what you had before with the open libraries. So that the next class will be devoted to a few tools of visualization, and using all the materials from lectures from 7 to 10, you will be able to complete your project. So choosing the tools and the results that you would consider as valuable for you to have approximately 2 weeks to complete the project and to get the credit at the last lecture on the 18th of December. The history of linguistic corpora. So as they say, all that we discuss with you here, starting with computational linguistics, corpus linguistics, distributive semantics and stuff like that, sometimes seems that there is very little sense in it. However, everything has kind of definition or kind of explanation. So as for corpus linguistics, that all started in the middle of the 20th century. A few corpora appeared then, and then since the end of the 20th century, we have the national corpora of most of European languages at least. So according to Professor Plungyan, who is one of the most famous in corpus linguistics in Russia, they are really invaluable tools for linguistic research, because a corpus is a set of data, a set of linguistic data, a set of documents. Here it is important to mark that those managers that we will discuss today, that they work not just with the whole TXT file like you had for your analysis before, but there you can upload a zip archive of PDF files, and so then they are compared according to the term document matrix, so giving more data to you. However, Noam Chomsky, who is famous for criticizing absolutely everything, starting with GPT that we mentioned during the first lecture, and here he, being a structuralist as well, he, according to him, he says that quantitative data does not, does not twice, sorry for that, that does not always accurately reflect the qualitative data. So in general, that brings us to the idea that the results of linguistic analysis, automatic analysis that we perform with different tools, they cannot be considered as the results of the research. They are considered as raw data to be interpreted afterwards. So the first corpora, as I noted before, they started to appear in the middle of the 20th century, and the first known one is Brown corpus. It was introduced in Brown University in 1960s, and there was around 1 million of words presented there. So it consisted of around 500 texts, each containing around 2,000 words. So what do you think? Is it a huge corpus or not? 1 million words or tokens? No, not at all, of course. So the idea was that they tried, of course, at one of the American universities to gather this corpus to figure out the peculiarities of American English. So at the end of the 20th century, national corpora started to appear, and up to now, British national corpus, BNC, is known to be kind of the ideal one. However, nowadays, a lot of functions of that corpus are available not for free. And in fact, it contains just 300 million words, so it is not so huge either. However, the markup and the representativeness is quite good there. In addition to BNC, there is the so-called COCA, the Corpus of Contemporary American English, although it includes mostly texts, kind of global English is represented there. But as you can see, it includes 1 billion words, so it's 3 times bigger than BNC. And what is more important, if you register there, then mostly all the functions are available. That is why I do believe that if you do research in English, then it's quite reasonable to use COCA. What else is important? As for the national corpus of the Russian language, it appeared a bit later than other national corpora. It appeared at the beginning of the 21st century. However, now it's quite huge, so it has 2 billion words. And there are a lot of subcorpora. I would say that this is the main peculiarity of the Russian language corpus, that he includes around 15 subcorpora, including something about 20 parallel corpora. What does mean parallel corpora? If it's parallel, what does it mean? What do you think? Absolutely, yeah. So parallel, it's always about 2 languages. What do you think? Which parallel corpus is now very rapidly developing in national Russian corpus within it? No. In the last, 8 years or something. Which parallel corpus with which language, Russian to which language, is developing rapidly within a Russian corpus? Exactly, yeah. And we use it with Chinese students at our faculty, and they prove, I cannot, but they do, that it's quite good. So it can be used in machine translation as well. But of course, the main 2 functions of linguistic corpora nowadays, they are on the one hand to figure out the frequency. Do you remember once we searched national corpus of the Russian language with you? What did we find there? Was anybody present at that lecture? Nope. We were searching for frequency of some words.
We found that Zastavka is used more frequently than Corpora.
Exactly, a very valuable linguistic result. Yeah? And so in general, so in national corpus, we can find the frequency of words and compare it in instances per million of texts. So this is the one main function, and the other is to use all those materials in computational linguistics and in machine learning. Professor Kibrik, another famous Russian linguist who deals with corpus linguistics, says that the representativeness is the main feature of a good corpus. So concerning his quotation, we can conclude that if a corpus is representative, can be called representative, if when adding some more documents, the whole picture does not change a lot. Of course, here we do not speak about neologisms, so the new words or the new meanings of existing words, but in general, if we just add to the literary corpus, for example, a few more books and novels, if the initial markup and the initial variety of the texts is reliable, then the whole picture of the frequency of particular words won't change much. So as for the frequency, will you remind me which law do they use to count the frequency to figure out which words are the most frequent in the language in general? Remember? Exactly, yeah. So according to Zipf's law, the function words are most frequent, but they do not change a lot. So they are the closed class set of words, and they can prove the representativeness of this or that corpus. As for the markup, normally, as for the Russian language, Zaliznяк's grammar, which is like 50 years old, is still used in most corpora for the grammatical markup, because once again, function words, which are most frequent, they are close class words that do not change much. So that was kind of theoretical background of corpus linguistics. Let's proceed with with different ways how to analyze a corpus. So partly we already used a few methods, but now we will kind of sum them up and figure out what can we use with further platforms. So in general, we mentioned a few times with you that structural linguistics, it started at the beginning of the 20th century with Ferdinand de Saussure, who suggested that linguists should look at the structure of the language on semantic and grammar levels, to figure out some, to compare something within those things. So we can divide, we can classify linguistic analysis within two main ways. So from the first angle, we can divide it into structural, concerning the first two levels to be computed. Semantics, first of all, concerning the semantic field, that includes which types of relations of the word. Will you remind me which relations does every word have? Brilliant, yeah. So vertical and horizontal, concerning different collocations and concerning different synonyms, antonyms, and so on. And secondly, we can consider the structure, the grammar structure of the sentence within the structural analysis. However, there is the third most difficult for the machine level. What does it deal with in computational linguistics when the whole discourse is analyzed? Or what is the aim of it? So remember that for the semantic ambiguities, normally the window of 1 or 2 words around the keyword is used for the analysis. If we speak about grammar, normally we take the whole sentence, the whole utterance to analyze, to figure out some syntax peculiarities. But if we take the whole discourse, meaning the whole text or the whole paragraph, to analyze just one keyword, so what does the machine do it for? What is the aim? In fact, that deals with different pragmatic aspects, so with the whole meaning. Like you remember, we had a meme with the example of 2 parrots when one asked, "Can you talk?" And so we can interpret this phrase differently, although the same grammar is used, the same semantics is used, but still the whole utterance might be classified to different dialogue acts, either the suggestion to have a dialogue or speaking about the ability. And so we can figure out those pragmatic issues, the whole meaning of the sentence or utterance, concerning the whole discourse, concerning pragmatic things. And this is what functional analysis deals with. And in fact, as for the American School of Linguistics, during the 20th century, mostly structuralists were evolving those methods of analyzing grammar and vocabulary, including Sapir, Chomsky, mentioned whom we mentioned before. As for the European school, the kind of center of it during the 20th century was so-called Prague School or Prague Circle of Linguists, who combined the methods of structural linguistics with those of functional linguistics. Functional linguistics deals with style, deals with different registers, deals with different functions of the words, and nowadays we understand that, of course, it would be about not just separate words, but probably about utterances. And so, for example, in such branches of linguistics like sociolinguistics, they use mostly the functional analysis to compare some documents or text. This is more about the theoretical division of linguistic analysis. As for the practical one, it can be classified to 2 types, distributive and diachronic analysis. Obviously, diachronic analysis deals with the history of usage of a particular word or lexeme. We can find this information, of course, in the national corpora. However, the bad thing about those graphs in national corpora is that, of course, each particular corpus per each language is prepared with different kind of principles. That is why if we want to compare 2 or 3 languages, it's better to use kind of a platform which has the corpora that are comparable to each other, that are combined, that are gathered according to the same principles. And we will have a look with you at the Google Ngram Viewer tool today, which includes different European languages as well as Russian. And we'll figure out a few functions there that can help us to compare, to perform this diachronic analysis and to figure out some rises of interest to particular words that appear in this corpus. As for distributive analysis, that is mainly the topic of natural language processing, where we try to figure out at a particular point of time in a particular corpus or subcorpus of documents whether some keywords have stronger relations with some other ones, and of course the most frequent content words are of the main interest in any corpus. And so for distributive analysis, normally they use so-called corpus managers that have a lot of functions inside them, and they perform mainly the same tasks that we tried to process with the code snippets on Python. However, here it's not so flexible because we do not know what happens there inside this tool. However, it's quite handy, and we will try out Voyant Tools platform today because it's free and online, whilst main corpus managers, they exist as kind of software. For example, Cont software is known to be the best one. It's free to upload, so you can try it out on your computers, uploading the software. As for most online tools for distributive analysis, they are not free, and not all of them are available in Russia. For example, Sketch Engine is not available anymore, and Monkey Learn and Text Inspector, they're quite good but not free. As for Voyant Tools, the worst thing about it is that it is impossible to download the graphs that you get from it. That is why it is free, but you can just do screenshots, and that would be quite enough to get the data. So is it clear about the typology of different linguistic methods, linguistic analysis methods? Okay, if it's clear, let's go on. Sorry for my cough. Obviously, with linguistic analysis, like with any type of analysis, we can start with a theory and hypothesis and then proceed with the corpus, like which model does, word-to-vec or glove? Starting with parameters and then dealing with corpus, which is supervised. Remember? In fact, word-to-vec. As for glove, it starts with the corpus, and then on the basics of the corpus, we can figure out some parameters if speaking about the language models, and if speaking about our human analysis, then we can come up with some hypotheses that are data-driven, that are based on a particular corpus. So I think it's obvious, like for most disciplines. So let's have a look at the corpus manager that was mentioned. So once again, there are, these are two different things. On the one hand, we have the national corpora as the storage of data of millions of texts available for analysis if we already have some particular language units to be analyzed. On the other hand, we have corpus managers, tools that help us to analyze our own corpus, and better with those tools to analyze it not as a whole document, TXT document, like we did with open libraries, but to analyze it as an archive of separate documents, because then the term document matrix is applied. So the most known corpus managers are Conc. This is kind of software which is free to download. Then Text Inspector and Monkey Learn. They are available online, but they are not free. That is why I suggest that now we have a look at the Voyant Tools platform. So here it is. And it would be great if you follow this link, voyanttools.org. So here it might be, so you can choose the language of the platform itself. You can choose the options, and with your own corpus, I would ask you at home to use the function of uploading your own corpus, but probably with the slow internet here it won't be possible. So here you upload the zip of all the PDFs, of all the articles in PDF. And now, just to try it out, let's open one of the corpora that are available within the tool for demonstration. So here there are 3 corpora. So let me use the Shakespeare's one, and may I ask you to choose the Austen novels one, just for us to compare the results that you can see. Okay? So you open the corpus, you choose not Shakespeare's like me, but Austen, and then it takes a few seconds for the tool to open the corpus, in fact, to analyze the whole of it. So I will tell you about the main default functions of it. However, as you can see, there are a few windows. In fact, you can use any functions in any of those 5 windows. Here, in each window, you can first of all, deal with this particular option that we will try out in a minute, or you can choose another function with the corpus tools that would be reflected in this window. But of course, the main default functions, they cover the main issues of the distributive analysis. And so in the first window, we can see, how do we call this, the picture? The word cloud, it is called. And of course, normally in the middle and the biggest words, they are the most frequent in this corpus. So as for my corpus, here it includes a few of Shakespeare's plays, and we can see a few words as the most frequent in the whole corpus. So first of all, within the scale, here we can choose how many terms, how many words are reflected. And also we can choose whether the whole corpus is analyzed or just particular documents. So what do you think? If we have a look here, are there any words that look like function ones, and in fact I do not need them here in my word cloud first? Yeah, sure. So let's get rid of shall. So here we can work with stop words list and add something here. Let's add shall. So I would save it. And mind that here there is the opportunity to edit also the whitelist. So if you are interested in a particular term or in a particular formula, you can add it here, some signs from the formula or whatever. You can add it here, save, and then confirm, and you will figure out these particular terms that you are interested in. The instrument will consider it when counting this word cloud. So as you can see now, we got rid of shall because, of course, we can see that some stop words were eliminated initially, but some appear that we can get rid of, that we can eliminate. So what about Jane Austen? What are the most frequent words there? Yeah, so this is about Shakespeare. What about Jane Austen?
I deleted Mr., Mrs. and words like stop words. And I see sad, think, no, good,
Okay, so somehow it works. So that was the first function, the first option of this corpus manager. Then the second one, here in the window you can see just the reader, in fact representing the documents in something close to TXT. That makes much sense for us, so let's turn from reader here to terms berry. So to terms berry, it will take us a second probably. Yeah, and let me here choose a bit fewer terms, otherwise it's hard to see anything. So in addition to word cloud, this function of terms berry that can be opened in any window, but in the second one the button is available as default. We can see whether this or that frequent word was used in all the documents or just in a few of them. So for example, when you process your articles, your scientific articles that you gathered, some of the most frequent words might be a bit surprising. For example, you might consider them as something not so important. Of course, normally we speak about from 40 to 60 most frequent words if we have about at least 30, starting from 30 articles. Otherwise, they would be too obvious for you. And so if you think that this or that word seems frequent but might not, but you do not think that it is so popular around all the articles, then you can use this terms berry to figure out whether this word is used in all the documents of your corpus or not. So for example, here cane is used in 36, whilst I do believe that there are 37 plays in this corpus at all. What is more important concerning the colors of those so-called berries, so you can see that here was Henry was the most vivid one, because it is used just in 11 documents, so less than in a half of the documents of the corpus it is represented. And so the color of the berry kind of draws your attention to this term because it seems like the picture is not so objective here. Is it clear why do we need, when do we need those berries in addition to word cloud? So if we need to consider some particular words, whether they are represented in all the documents or just in a few of them, which makes it more subjective, then we can use those berries.
What does mean numbers when we numbers at other circles when we use some circle?
This is the how often this particular word is used with near other words, so the connections between the words. So that was a very good question, because this reflects this vectorization process. So we can see that like is not connected to Henry at all, because obviously it is about Henry VIII, and nothing good or nice is considered here. Right. Okay, then let's come back to the first window, and here we have an additional button which is called terms. Let's turn to this function, and here in fact we have just the list of those most frequent words. That does not give us a lot of information. However, if we use this plus button before the word, it will give us the data about syntagmatic and paradigmatic relations of this particular word, but not in general according to the national corpus, for example, but in your particular corpus. I would say that it makes sense here to search not for 5 terms, but for 20 terms at least, because the first 5 collocations or correlations, they again would be probably quite obvious. However, if we search for 20, for example, then there might be some interesting collocations figured out. So collocations, they reflect the syntagmatic relations, and correlations, the paradigmatic vertical relations. So for example, so I was searching for sir here, and I have a few collocations here, of course, with names. First of all, in the first place, but then a few adjectives and verbs are presented here as well. And as for correlations, so again, there is some rubbish here, like a wife, for example, but prince makes sense, yeah, that there is the correlation as a synonym. There might be the correlations, they include not only synonyms, but all the correlations mentioned in one of the lectures before, like grouping, classifying, being part of something, and so on. So would you share the, let's say, collocations for one of the most frequent words for Jane Austen? So which is, okay, the third most frequent word for Jane Austen? So you cleaned the list, okay. So what are the collocations with this word? The first one, collocates.
Strange result. Said, no, shall, think, and be.
Said no? No, you mean the verb?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, probably a few dialogues were used there, that is why they appeared together in the texts. But yeah, rather strange. Okay, what else is there in collocations?
4 verbs and 1 adjective.
Okay. If you add a few, using this scale, if you add a few more words, what would appear there with no?
Let, say, whether, yes, or.
Okay, but that makes more sense. Let know, shall know, and so on. So, but probably again, if we speak about nouns, that will give us more data. So that was the first option that I wanted to draw your attention to. So first of all, the general frequency represented with the cloud. Second, terms vary representing different documents, whether the word is frequent in the whole corpus or just in a few documents. And then the relations of particular frequent terms, their syntagmatic and paradigmatic relations. Then the fourth default option here is trends. Normally it is represented in the third window. And here we have the graph whether this or that word is, how often this or that word is used in a particular, in a particular document. So let me add a few. So here you can choose the words that you want to be represented with this particular graph. So let me compare 3 terms, Lord, King, and Sir. And here I can see that as for Sir, for example, it is overused in the 12th night, or quite reasonable. It's quite reasonable because it's about servants a lot. As for the king, of course, in King Henry VI, it is used a lot. However, in some of the plays, a few words are not used at all. So here you get the graph of the most frequent words. Would you now do the same now for a few words from Jane Austen corpus, a few words comparable to each other? So 3 nouns or 3 verbs, what would be your results? Okay, what have you compared?
Compared think, know, and said,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see some correlation,
Mm-hmm.
some discussable correlations.
Mm-hmm.
Just 3 lines.
Okay, 3 lines. Right, but that would, of course, when you process your corpus of articles, that would make your sense with the terms of theories that you deal with. So anyway, this third window represents the trends, illustrating them with the graph. And finally, the 5th function that I want to discuss with you is the summary. In general, of course, it gives us just the general information about the corpus. But what is interesting here, I do believe, is the last point of the summary, distinctive words. Because, again, it brings us to this term document matrix, where we can figure out whether some frequent words are frequent for the whole document, for the whole corpus, represented in the word cloud. Let's open it once again. And compare it to the most frequent words in particular documents. Again, we need more items probably here. And these are the distinctive words, so they normally do not coincide with the word cloud, because here the way it is the way of analysis is the following. So it analyzes this particular document and compares it to all the rest of the documents in the corpus, figuring out the particular terms which are distinctive for this particular document. So again, I do believe that that makes sense when analyzing the articles, because you can figure out the differences, for, especially if a few articles deal with the same theory, for example, or hypothesis. You can figure out some peculiarities of the approaches or conclusions made in particular articles. So is it clear what these distinctive words are about? So with Jane Austen, what is the first document and what are the words, but not the first 10 words probably. With fiction, we need more words, because otherwise just the proper names would make the list of the distinctive words for the document. For example, here, as for the comedy of errors, first come all the names, but then come just content words like comedy, ropes, that reflect the content of this particular play compared to Henry VI or Romeo and Juliet, for example. Okay, what about Jane Austen? What is the first document here? Okay, and so if you consider about 20 distinctive words in addition to proper names, what do you get there? Just a few examples.
I see some strange results. Maybe mistakes in the text. For example, friend, but wrote not like free and wrote free.
So misprint. Okay, so they are spelled incorrectly. Okay, so you can add a few more. You can get like up to 60 distinctive words are available here. And like with most of the results of the text analysis, the interesting things come after the second or the third, after 20 or 30 words. So what can you find about any of the documents of Jane Austen Corpus? That makes sense, that probably in this particular novel there is more about female characters if compared to all the other novels. So is it clear how the Corpus Manager works, how to use it with your corpus?
Why in first window in terms we have some words marked with green. For example, in your set of words which like
Okay, let me consider. That's a good question, in fact, because normally I didn't have it like this, although I tried it out with my laptop today in the morning, but they were not highlighted. I will check it out, okay, and share it with you, probably note it in the chat, because normally they are not highlighted. Right here, any suggestions? By the way, do you have highlighted words as well in the Austen corpus?
Yes.
Yes? That's interesting.
Also the word good, for example. Also the word great, like, better, love, happy, pleasure.
That's interesting.
Or marked with red. Maybe
Doubt is not red. Doubt is not red.
Doubt, okay. That's a good question. Either I haven't paid attention to it or it just appeared, something new. Okay, let me share it with you in chat, probably I will figure it out. Any other questions? Anything else you paid attention to? Okay, so that was about the distributive analysis. Let's move on to the diachronic analysis. So here, would you follow the link books.google.com? So initially, why the link is books? Initially, this corpus, it included mainly some literary works, but nowadays only kind of 1/3 of this corpus is literary. So there are documents of different styles here. And here on the contrast, in contrast to the previous analysis stage, we already work with the figured out most frequent or important for your research words. So the initial easiest task here is just to compare a few terms, like the names is in default are compared here, to figure out with this graph the popularity of the words at certain periods of time. So with most languages, starting with the 19th century, but you can here change the dates for the analysis, and you can choose the corpus, including, for example, Russian is available here too. So would you now compare 2 or 3 terms from your research areas and tell me whether the tops of popularity here are explicable, or they're questionable and should be researched why at this or that particular point of time something was paid more or less attention. So let me as well compare here, okay, machine learning. What else? Artificial intelligence. Neural networks. Okay. So that in fact makes sense because here we have the rise of interest to something discussed mostly in fiction of the 1980s as artificial intelligence. We have quite a reasonable graph for machine learning. Mostly, obviously, it is used in some scientific articles. As for neural network, I do not know why in the 90s when there was so-called winter of artificial intelligence, there is a rise compared to early years of the 21st century. That's a question. So here the articles, for example, of these particular years might be analyzed by human to figure out why there is such a rise. Okay, what about your terms?
This year, the first neural networks appeared but didn't succeed.
Appeared they a bit earlier, but probably there might have been some kind of success, yeah, of a kind of a neural network, like, so they appeared in the middle of the 18th century, yeah, according to this corpus, they appeared in those texts, but they had a huge rise in the middle of the 90s. Probably, yeah, there was kind of a success described, but probably something very particular because 1995, and then there is this fall. Right, what about your terms? So take a minute to have a look. Okay, any results to share about the terms of your research interest? Have you tried it out? Yeah, you're welcome then. Will you share your results?
I compared the terms gas sensor sensitivity and selectivity, and it's difficult to analyze gas sensor because you don't see anything. If I look through the numbers, I see that the popularity of gas sensor rises. Sensitivity has a maximum end of 1987, and selectivity in 2005, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, but that makes sense for further research. So that gives you some data that, okay, probably at that periods of time, something happened, something probably that we do not now consider, but still the articles of those years might be searched. Yeah, you can figure out something else. Does anyone else want to share the results? You can also compare the same terms in Russian that we started with, that because the corpora in different languages here, they are gathered within the same principles. So if we choose here the Russian corpus, and then search for the equivalents in Russian for those words.
It already plotted something. Maybe translate it to equivalents by itself.
that looks a bit strange, in fact, because that looks strange. Let's better to search for words in Russian if we wanna search the Russian corpus. Another, a few other options here that might be used is, first of all, to use this sign. Then you get all the collocations through the star sign, 10 most frequent collocations with this particular word. Unfortunately, if you search just with the star, then all the collocations with different parts of speech are considered. So there might be such rubbish like машинное и that doesn't make much sense. However, let me in fact come back to the English examples because we're considering English examples in general here. So let me search for example, okay, machine, as it was in Russian, but with the star sign. So it would give a few collocations, but as only 10 are given, most of them are with function words. So if you add here the part of speech, that would make more sense, and that gives the comparison of something that might be compared, so the word that you search for in collocation with a particular part of speech. What was that? Animation tools. Makes sense, okay. That's for machine learning, starting, yeah, once again. And what was that? In 20s. Green.
Start with some word. Here in the noun, I want the adjective, and then my keyword. Change the word.
I'm not sure that it would do. Did you try it? Yeah?
I
Works?
tried, but maybe I wrote it wrongly. And,
as far as I know, you need to start with your keyword.
okay, so I need to start with my word and then
It's not so flexible. That's why we started with some libraries where you can tune everything, but here seems like you need to start with the keyword, or not? Does it reply you with anything if you change the places? No, you need to start, yeah, you need to start with the keyword. Right. So is it clear how you can perform this diachronic analysis? And of course, it makes more sense if you deal with collocations and if you compare it in different languages. Clear? Right. So then we've discussed with you in general what are the linguistic corpora, what are the corpus managers that help us to perform different types of analysis, distributive, something common to what we did before. In Voyant tools it's possible, and diachronic in addition about the most frequent words or about the terms that you're interested in. So at home, I would ask you to use both tools with your corpus and with the most frequent words that you found there. Is it clear what you need to do at home? So in fact, there would be kind of a little presentation with the screenshots of these chief results, where I would ask you to add your own screenshots of those platforms concerning your corpora, and then probably next time you will tell me whether the results are more or less valuable with corpus managers or with open libraries, and we will figure out how to visualize those results better for your project. Okay? Right, thank you very much for coming, those who are here, right? So probably, as the previous time we had 2 lectures, some of the students were overloaded. Right, so see you next week. Thank you.